Hello, my name is Dylan Harris. Today I'll be talking about the growing workload of clinical psychologists, why this is a problem, and presenting a creative and research-based solution. So, clinical psychologist workloads are growing. The APS released a statement in 2024 saying that their workload had been growing steadily since COVID, and this is made worse by clinical psychology programs. Um, a lot of them around the country are closing. The other ones that are still running take sometimes 30 students, sometimes less than 10 students per year. So why is this a problem? Workload is directly relational with burnout. McCormack and colleagues in 2018 displayed this across 29 studies. So it's definitely there. Well, we can somewhat infer causation. And then burnout, uh, specifically for psychologists, is significantly related to treatment ineffectiveness. Now, this has been replicated um, for anxiety and depression by Delgadillo and colleagues in 2018, and more recently for PTSD by Sayer and colleagues in 2024. So, why are clinical psychologists being overworked? Davis McCabe and colleagues in 2018 were interviewing a bunch of counseling psychologists, trying to understand why there was such a heavy bias for clinical psychologists and how the counseling psychologists were feeling about that. And maybe the most interesting point that came up was the currently in place two two-tiered Medicare rebate system, um, which funnels clients to clinical psychologists. I call it the rebate funnel. Um, Seeing a clinical psychologist for a 50-minute session, you can claim up to $145 back on that session. Whereas seeing a generalist, which includes any other um, specific qualification, including just a general professional master's qualification, you can only claim up to $100 back. Now, this is based on the assumption that psychologists are going to charge the rates here, 170 and 116, which the government has based these rebates on. The reality, however, is psychologists set their own rates, and the APS recommends psychologists to charge $318 per session. So while the government thinks clients are going to pay $25 and $17, they end up paying usually $104 or $101, depending on who they see. So these actual charges being almost even make the choice between clinical and generalist quite easy when considering the clinical qualification is much more respected than the generalist one. So why not make the rebate even? This idea of rebate parity is already circulating. Um, it's a good idea. Um, it would redistribute clients, reducing the workload of clinical psychologists. It would also create a environment where psychologists are used based on their reputation and results rather than qualification and cost. Um, However, it does have some cons. It may reduce the benefit uh, of getting a clinical qualification, i.e., it would devalue it. The current rebate system is designed to reward people for becoming clinical psychologists. Um, in the same vein, it may discourage future students from taking on the clinical training because they wouldn't be rewarded monetarily as much. So, I propose a more balanced solution, cascading rebates. Now, this would work like the tax system, with different prices representing um, different rebates. These are some um, theoretical brackets that I've come up with, and based on those brackets, these are the prices that a client would pay comparative to if rebate parity was put in place. As you can see, the prices are smaller, and the gap between the prices are smaller, representing a smaller devaluation. So it would redistribute clients by giving them monetary incentive to see a generalist while reducing the devaluation of rebate parity, which is its main problem. There are some drawbacks. Devaluation would still occur to a lesser extent, but it still would still occur, which means um, clinical students would be somewhat discouraged. Maybe the most important drawback, though, is the added complexity in charging. Currently, there's only two rates to charge. Rebate parity would mean there would be only one rate to charge. With cascading rebates, it would always be slightly different, meaning the government would need to roll out training programs, would need to roll out computing systems, which would cost some money. However, I believe it's worth it. The idea that um, one reform could help to make not only a fairer treatment space for clients by reducing prices, but a fairer treatment place for all psychologists, um, not reducing the value of specialization so much as rebate parity, but still creating an environment where reputation and results are rewarded over um, cost and qualification, which is important. Um, Thank you very much for listening.